Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Forever Forward podcast. I'm your host Sid and I'm joined by my colleague Umesh for a discussion on asset lifecycle management, in particular the role of operations and maintenance in driving asset health and optimizing costs throughout the operational phase of the asset lifecycle. And if you're new to the channel or are tuning in for the first time, I work in marketing and Umesh has been a keen observer in the energy operations and maintenance space, first as a consultant and now as the founder and CEO at Zimpla. A very warm welcome to the episode, Umesh.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So let's begin by talking about the operations and maintenance phase of the asset life cycle, which is the longest and most critical phase as it directly impacts the lifespan, the reliability, and the cost associated with it. So, can you talk us through some of the challenges that teams face while managing the asset life cycle and what sort of changes you've seen in recent times?
Absolutely. So when you look at, as you rightly mentioned, when you look at the life of the asset, the largest part of it is when you're operating and maintaining when the asset is in use. And the biggest challenge I see when it comes to asset lifecycle decisions, and this is across majority of the asset classes, not the most. I mean, there will be cases where this may not hold, but in the majority of the cases, this holds, which is the team or the company deciding on asset cycle decisions is primarily not the same as the one which is operating and maintaining it, right? Now, if ideally, in an ideal world, everything you do during an operating and maintenance stage should feed back into your decision-making ability when you're doing the life cycle decision, but that doesn't happen. Now, if I were to take example of two distinct geographies where we work and where, as you said, I've been observing a few things. So if I look at the Middle East, the focus on asset lifecycle itself has been very low for purely because a lot of the assets that have been built in the recent 10, 15, 20 years. So you're probably now going to be at some point in time coming to a point where your life cycle decisions will be there, right? And hence you may need to start thinking about it as from an asset owner perspective. Right now, obviously, coming at the fag end of making a decision whether you want to life cycle asset or not, you can't do much from operations and maintenance point of view. If you shift the focus to UK and Ireland, where we've been working with, on some of the PFI projects, longer term projects, there you have distinct roles. The asset owner has part of the role outsourced to an entity which is supposed to be taking care of asset life cycle, or that's there. I mean, when they bid for the project, that part of the consortium was supposed to do asset life cycle, and there is an FM company as a part of the consortium that does the operations and maintenance in that sense. Challenge in UAE is different. I mean, challenge in the UK and Ireland is different. But if there is one common thread, that decisions, actions taken during the operations and maintenance stage do not always educate the decisions that are to be taken on life cycle, and that remains the biggest challenge. Why is the challenge? That's a separate question.
So, while the challenge is there, one would think that the opportunity might also be there. So, what is the opportunity for FM companies and the asset owners in this case? Is it beneficial for them to work with a technology partner? What have you been seeing through your work? You could share some insights on what a technology partner can bring to the table.
So I think without a shadow of a doubt, it's beneficial for asset owners. Like I guess the role that the FM company might want to do in the context of how does their contract sit, how does the relationship with the asset owner sit, so on and so forth. For asset owner, there's a clear advantage. When I say clear advantage, which means perceived advantage. Now, how do they get to that point? How effectively do they get to the point? Who will they need to take them on that journey, so on and so forth? Those are separate questions, right? And as we've seen, technology definitely is going to play a major role. And this is not because the way conventionally asset lifecycle decisions have been done is that you've had assessments, you've had really qualified people coming in, taking measurements, doing condition assessments, surveys, so on and so forth. Plus, you take a look at a lot of data, but still there is a lot of deep engineering effort involved. Not something that's something that you can do on a periodic basis from that point of view. So there's definitely an opportunity for the asset owners. For FM companies, they really need to decide the role that they want to play. I mean, and again, I think if they're happy maintaining the status quo, then so be it. I mean, honestly. So not all FM companies will jump the wagon and take advantage over there of the opportunity. The ones which are engineering focused will definitely end up taking an advantage, because at the end of the day, it brings project services revenue to them as well. There is so much that you can do around an asset lifecycle activity where your billable hours can go, and you're doing far more productive work than it's just that saying I will lock in another 200 hours or 300 hours or X hours, but that's the opportunity. But again, I think FM companies, not all will be able to take advantage, not all will have the capacity to take advantage as well. So the ones who are invariably largely focused on soft services, not engineering first companies will struggle to take advantage. I mean, uh, they will say it on their website, they will say it on their marcoms, you will see that on their LinkedIn pages, but when you really get to the depth of how they do it, you will find gaps there.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe through all the research that I've done and the changes in the market that I'm seeing, there is increasing complexity in the nature of assets that have to be managed, and there is increasing pressure to maximize return on investment and to reduce costs from the end of the asset owners. So, how do the strategies for FM companies and in turn the tools and technology stack that they use to help deliver the outcomes. So, how do you think they need to change or sort of evolve to keep up with this shift?
So firstly, I think I've also been hearing that in all my conversations that I've been having with prospects and customers. Now, I guess, and more, so I'm hearing more of that there are pressures on cost. People want cost reduction. Asset owners want cost reduction. Now, how much is it impacting the decisions that are being taken today is out for judgment. What I'm trying to say, there is going to be a gestation period of let's say between now and maybe 12 to 18 months when people do end up. So there are going to be a lot of trials that people will do. They'll make strategy now that there is a significant pressure point. So that's just wanted to clear that the pressure today doesn't mean that the action will happen today or a significant action will happen today from these companies. Now, yes, there are companies starting to look out for, see, because you will need technology, whether you, that's out of question. You will need tools, you will need technology to further strengthen the people in the process that drive, and we've always spoken about it. At the end of the day, it's going to be people process augmented by technology, not vice versa. So you're going to be needing technology. Now, the question that becomes is how do you, and which is again a classic build versus buy or both scenario. We've already spoken about it in the context of FM, and that struggle and that remains over here as well. I think where it becomes slightly, in my opinion, slightly more clearer than FM companies is asset owners don't have that bias of building, right? Like FM companies have had that bias of building, which I again I don't understand why. It just doesn't make sense. Historically speaking, we haven't seen great success in that. But asset owners don't have a bias towards building, and that's where it's going to get interesting. So the fact that asset lifecycle, reliability, all these are becoming important. My sense is that a lot of action will move towards asset owners. Should not have moved toward asset owners had the FM companies been proactive, but because they've not been proactive, they've allowed the status quo to be maintained. You only reap what you sow. So if you haven't done it or anything over the last 2 3 years, you're not dramatically going to get any amazing results. And that's where I think it's a longer answer to your question. In some countries, I think in Middle East, you would start to find that tier one FM companies still will maintain a great, consulting presence in asset management, in the life cycle, so on and so forth. But I think from the tools and technology point of view, it's the asset owners who are going to make the sort of decisions, which are transformational in nature, not incremental in nature. Coming back to again, when you look at countries, the other countries that we operate, I mean UK, sorry, you're going to see FM companies making the cut because it's just that there are a lot more PFI projects. There are not a lot more 20-year-old, 25-year projects. So that makes sense for them to be part of it.
It seems like your message to asset owners and the FM companies is pretty clear right now that the status quo needs to change and they need to look at something that transforms the current process and really gets them to the end outcomes that both of them will be happy achieving. So just
No, I think
yeah.
just a clarification there. I think the onus, I mean, one thing we're clearly seeing is that different regions are behaving differently, which is understandable because of where they are from the economic point of view, where they are from asset development point of view or asset maturity point of view. If there is a country or an economy which has recently gone up the ranks, right, or where infrastructure has been built over the last 20 years, 15 years, you're not expecting life cycle to be a bigger part of the agenda so far. It's now going to come through. As soon as you're looking at developed economies, their infrastructure was built way back. And hence, there are a lot of discussions that would happen around asset lifecycle. And hence, they become important, is bearing. But also important, what I'm saying is that the moment if asset owners end up making a decision on technology, I see FM's role being very much limited to you don't have a much of a role outside of technology or expertise, right? So you're ultimately then only providing people. That was always the premise. For you to differentiate, for you to move out of that people providing sort of an agency role, you have to up your expertise, up your game, up your technology game. But if you haven't done that, then you're obviously going to struggle. That's fine. That's my assessment, not the message. My humble assessment of the situation.
Right. Yeah. So on that note, I think we're done with the discussion for this episode. But
Thanks, mate. Oh, thanks, mate. I mean, this was interesting.
yeah, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for the listeners joining in as well. And keep listening to the Forever Forward podcast for more such content on operations, maintenance, and technology in the built environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.